Hello everyone, this is China Paradigm, where we, Dashi Consulting, interview seasoned entrepreneurs in China. Hello everyone, I'm Matthieu David, the founder of Dashi Consulting and this podcast, China Paradigm. And today I am with Claudia Masueger. You are the founder, or co-founder, you are going to tell me later on, but I understood you as a founder and still CEO of Cheers Wines. You started the business in 2011, and you opened the first shop of Cheers Wines in April 9, 2011. But before that, and that's a story I'd like to know more as well, you had another company doing wine business as well, MQ Wines. As far as I understood, it lasted like a bit more than 2 years, and your warehousing was burnt down. So you had to start again from zero again with another model, which is Cheers Wines model. So Cheers Wines are now about 60 stores, wine stores. We are in 2019, early 2019, and mainly in Beijing. You have expanded to other cities. As far as I understand from the information I have online, up to 14 cities, a bit everywhere in China in the past, in Zhengzhou, in Chengdu. So Zhengzhou being a second-tier city, Chengdu also, but less second. A big second-tier city, and you are now very well known in Beijing. We see your store everywhere, your logo as well. You are very active on social media. I checked a little bit what you are doing on WeChat. You have a Weidian, you have a JD store. So you, I guess, have a extensive experience on O2O. And that's something that actually I like to understand better too. So thank you very much, Claudia, for being with us. And my first question, as always, is what's the size of your business currently?
Yes. Hi, Matthieu. Thanks for having me. So currently, Cheers Wines has 60 stores, as you mentioned, all around China, but with a main focus with 40 stores in Beijing. We have around 80 employees, 25 in the back office and the rest on the road in the stores, and we are selling around every week one container with around 14,000 bottles of wine.
One container is about 14,000 bottles.
Yes.
Okay, I see. So the numbers I got indeed from 2014 is that in 1 year you were selling 70,000 bottles. That's what I got from the internet with 16 outlets. So that's a very strong growth. I believe the number of bottles is not only from the shops, right? It's also the B2B and online.
Well, in our days, offline is not working alone anymore. So it's very important to have a very good balance between on and offline, and that the touch points are working smoothly. So that means you have the offline store more for the experience and the lifestyle exchange. And then you basically offer your customers the convenience that they can order online immediately from the stores or from at home. What is increasing extremely fast is the O2O platforms with third parties. That means Ele.me, Baidu, Meituan, etc. So that means the customers are sitting in restaurants nearby a store. They order wines online, and in 20 minutes, we would deliver it directly where the customer is. And
wow,
this
20
minutes is the new guideline in Beijing. And this is a huge demand from our consumers, and it's growing very rapidly. So it's very important in sales these days that you have off and online channels available. We are around active in 8 different online channels. That could be e-commerce, it could be O2O, but it's also social commerce, which is more and more popular as well. As well as additionally social commerce. That's like Douyin, for example, that you have Douyin.
Okay.
Douyin channels where you add sales at the end, or other social media channels where you always at the end offer your products also to order.
I see. Before we actually go deeper into O2O, because I think you are in a position where you can experience a lot in O2O. You have your own shops and you are present online and you are very active on social media, which is kind of unique. A lot of brands, they sell through third parties or they only sell on Tmall, but to have your own shop and to manage social media is very unique. Before going to back to this topic, I like to go back on the numbers. You said 60 stores, and before we started, you told me we open and close. And there's a lot of renovation in Beijing. Could you tell us more about what happened in Beijing and what is it about opening and closing a store, and how do you manage that?
Yes. So it was end of 2016, 2017 when Beijing renovated its city. So over 40,000 little stores on the street has been closed, and around over 4.5 million people had to leave Beijing from the city. So a lot of our cash cow stores have been closed, unfortunately, by the government, and all the stores have been completely legal, but the government then put bricks into the doors. So they closed our doors. They mentioned we can still legally run the store, which was not very efficient when you don't have a door. But nevertheless, on some stores, we did that for 6 months, and people would actually climb up the window from outside, knock on the window, and we would sell the wines through the windows. And we were actually very lucky because the government also put a gate in front of the window, and the bottles were exactly the size so it could go through the gates in front of the window. So yeah, those are the normal things. You know, China is moving 7 times faster than the rest of the world, and you always have to adapt. You always have to observe. Another challenge was, the street stores then have been closed, the majority. So we then had to enter the shopping malls. And shopping mall business is completely different than the street business. So it needed an adaptation in terms of marketing, in terms of interior design, even the product assortment we had to update, and consumers' communication and behaviors, everything has changed. So we managed this step, and we are now in many, many shopping malls as either a bigger store with 60 square meters where people can sit and enjoy and meet friends as well, especially learn a lot about wine through wine tasting, through visiting suppliers, visiting, and through interaction. And then, and then we have smaller stores like island stores, which are very, very powerful, very beautiful, and with a huge traffic in terms of consumers. So that is now, we are now in malls, especially in the first-tier cities, and a bit upgraded. But we always have to do this, yes.
Very interesting. So 60 square meters. You are talking about a store which is 60 square meters. When I went to your store in Sanlitun Street, I believe it was much smaller. We were more talking about 30 square meters. Am I correct?
We have stores who are maybe 13 square meters up to 90 square meters. So in this range. So there are many different models. You will recognize Cheers everywhere, but it really depends on the location and the surroundings. So there are some, for example, store number 3 in Wodaco is only 15 square meters and very, very powerful.
Oh, it's 13.
So it really, yes. So some of them are very small and some of them are very big, yes.
Okay, but you have a big terrace. Maybe that's also the
Sanlitun store was around 25 square meters. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And the one which I guess the one which you're talking about was the outside sittings.
I see.
That was beautiful because also the customers could order the food from the neighbors, and we had a beautiful terrace. It was nice. Yes.
And this one is closed.
This one is closed. Yeah.
I see. So the city of Beijing is trying to make things basically more organized in the city, to be more within malls and less within the street. And you moved from having your store mainly in the street to shopping malls. What does it involve? So actually, my question is financial. The fact that Beijing has such a regulation applied so quickly, how did you manage it financially? And then to move from streets to shopping malls, how does it change the economics, financially speaking? Can you still sell a wine at 28.8 renminbi, or you had to change some of your way of doing business? Yeah,
that's a very good question. So the 28 kwai wine, we in shopping malls, we offer them now in a 3-package offer. And people like to spend more money. Also, the customer spendings per time has increased. But also in the rest of the assortment, people who are going to shopping malls, they would like to rather have medium and even high level offers than rather the entry level. So we had to adapt there a lot, but nevertheless, we still have stores in third or fourth tier cities where the choice goes in the entry level for own consumption and then really, really high up for gifting. So it really depends on where you are and which environment you are in. You will select a certain assortment for your store. So we do have a certain standard assortment, which all the stores need to have, but then we have add-on products, which we then select depending on the location.
I see. So for people who are listening from different countries, 28.8 GMB in 2019 and May 2019 is about $4 and 3.5 euros. It's extremely cheap for China. For Europe, they would say it's okay. It's normal.
Well, I wouldn't say cheap. I don't like the word cheap.
Sorry.
It's very affordable. And we have, my family is in the wine business since 4 generations. So we have a lot of purchase power. So we know our world around it. And when we buy a wine for China, we would combine it with an order from a big retailer in Europe so that we can decrease the buying price. So that's why when you try all our wines, you always get the best price value of wines in this segment. And we have quite a complicated process how to select new wines, and we are very, very strict on this. So that means from 100 wines offered to us, we would only take one. So we can always guarantee best price values. And also, again, we have to have a certain assortment so that we can satisfy customers in third, fourth tier cities or in first tier cities. I mean, also when you look at Beijing and Shanghai, they are two different worlds. So people would eat differently, people would drink differently. So this is also an important part of it.
So a very good price quality ratio. I mean, very good pricing. That's what you're mentioning. Is it? I try to understand the financials again. Is it because you have your own shop and you are both an importer and a reseller that you are able to actually lower the prices in order to avoid to have so many intermediaries? Does it affect your margins, or is simply because you are applying lower margin?
Oh, I think it's a combination of everything. So first of all, we have a very good purchase power in terms of we combine our orders with other huge retail chains all over the world. But then also we have no middleman in between. So we are importing everything. We are selling it directly to end consumers. So that makes us very strong on that point.
Because in China, you need different licenses of importing and selling, right? So you have all those licenses to be able to do everything.
Of course.
Shops.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Which is kind of unique. Usually it's very, very segmented. So you mentioned about the origin. You are from a wine family, and for 4 generations, as far as I read online. Could you tell us more about how you analyzed the market in 2011, and you studied at that time 2008, sorry, and you studied at that time MQ wines. Could you tell us about how you analyzed China at that time? And as a story, you mentioned to a journalist that at that time, you saw some Chinese putting Coca-Cola into Bordeaux wine because it was so strong. So I'd be very interested to know what you saw at that time that made you think this is a place where I can start and develop my business of wine.
Yes. So I arrived in China on the 8th of January 2008 with actually 2 suitcases full of wine samples and a very big will to find out the real market in China. So what I did at the beginning, I've seen that my competitors would go in 5-star hotels and do fancy wine tastings, but I wanted to realize if the people on the street actually like wine and what kind of wine they like and what kind of prices they could pay. So I was just randomly traveling all over the country and stand there on the streets, packed out my bottles and started to figure out what kind of wines people actually on the street like. And at that time, in 2008, most people would know about French wine. Most people would say, oh, no, French wine Bordeaux must be the best wine. But I realized also on a lot of meetings I had is that no one actually liked it, because for newly wine drinkers, and China at that time was still a newly wine drinking country, people rather prefer sweeter wines. So they had a heavy Bordeaux, and that's why they put Coca-Cola and green tea and ice or whatever you can imagine was ending up in the wine, because they would gambé the wine. That means bottom up. And so that they can gambé a heavy wine, you have to mix it with sweet liquid. So that's how it was. So when I was on the street and trying to figure it out, what they really like. For example, there was a girl, maybe 25 years old, and she said, oh, I don't want wine. And then I start giving her a Moscato and said, well, try this one. And she drank it, and she was so excited. And she was like, what, this is wine? So then I realized then that there is so much that what they don't know. And that's why, I figured out that they like sweeter wines to start, that they cannot afford so much. So at that time, they would afford 50 kwai to spend for a bottle of wine. And that's how I then afterwards, when I founded Cheers, came back with this knowledge and searched for wines which really fit to this newly wine drinking market. But going back to 2008, my first deal was the Olympics, so I could provide wines and beverages to the Swiss house during the Olympic. So I was very fortunate. And then I started a B2B company, because I also wanted to have a piece of the cake. Of course, China was booming, the wine market was booming, but 80% of all the wines would go to the government. That means we had customers, distributors all over China, and they would sell it then to the government. And whatever wines we would give them, they would put 100 or 200 kwai margin on it. Then the second problem was they wouldn't know how to storage the wine. So you can have a fantastic wine, you put it in the wrong warehouse, and it's gone. It's just not good anymore. So all those kind of facts were very unsatisfying, because the wines which we sold at the end was not really nicely consumed and was overpriced. So in November 2010, when our completely warehouse burned down, and luckily I was Swiss and well insured, but we were out of business for like 4.5 months. And then I had finally time to think again and come back with the idea of really making wine drinking fun and affordable for a younger generation. And that's a couple of months after the fire. We then opened our first store on the 9th of April, 2011, and that was immediately a success. So the youngsters would discover us in Beijing. They loved our wine choices. They loved also the prices, but from the beginning, also, additionally, we founded a Cheers University where people would be really well educated, our own staff, but also our customers. And that was highly appreciated, so that we really show not just sniffing around the glass and talk about weird words no one understands, but we would really start simple to explain how to choose a right wine, how to distinguish fake wines, because at that time, fake wine was still a big subject in China. And all of this, how to drink wine, how to enjoy it, what kind of lifestyle is it with it. And I always say wine is the best product in the world to sell, because wine is connected to so many countries, to so many languages, traditions, cultures. So in terms of marketing, in terms of knowledge transfer, it's endless. And we also went a lot at that time, 2011, we went a lot outside on events. So wherever the youngsters would party, wherever the youngsters would be, we would be there with a booth, making free wine tastings, and then bring them back afterwards to the store. So we were super popular. And within the first 2 years, we opened 8 stores. And people would definitely know us. And it was an absolutely fantastic start.
8 stores in within 1 year. How much time did it take you to be cash flow positive on one store? I believe that you were already having positive cash flow before starting another one, or being close to them.
Yes. So the first store was cash flow positive in 3 weeks. Because it was a special, we really looked for a location. We had no idea what we are doing, and we have never had any retail experience. We are wine people. So we just selected a store in the middle of a purely Chinese neighborhood. It wasn't fancy at all. The rent was, I think, 3,500 kwai. It was in Shishimen. And we wanted to experiment this, if it works. And the idea was when we did our interior design, the first interior design, I wanted to have it as non-traditional as possible. So, the wine world sometimes can be a bit snobby. And a lot of youngsters would tell me they are scared to go in a wine store. They thought they need to be real sophisticated, and knowing about wine is so complicated. So I wanted to have it colorful, fun, and non-intimidating, so that people really could come in, and that's what happened. So we would really welcome in an uncomplicated atmosphere, in a very simple interior design, especially at the beginning. And people would just discover the world of wines. We had free tasting from the beginning in all our stores, which I thought was very important because people needed to know what kind of wines are available, because they had still in their mind, and sometimes it's still today, wine is just a heavy red wine. So when they started to discover fruity wines, rounder wines, easy drinkable wines, then they would really have fun to discover this wonderful world. And then, when I look back now and see people who drink with us in 7-8 years, they really step by step improve their skills and become very sophisticated. And at that moment, when they even discover how food and wine in combination changes, then a whole new world opens. And that is something very, very beautiful.
So in terms of growth, I'm interested to understand how you manage growth. Usually the first store actually is more quickly cash flow positive and breaking even, because you have your own network, you have the people you can bring, and you are maximizing with it. That's the same with restaurant businesses. But the third one, it takes much more time. Could you share a bit the next store? How did you manage the growth to basically finance it, and to how much time it took to be cash flow positive? So 3 weeks for the first one. I guess it was longer for the other ones.
Yes. So the first 2 years was absolutely amazing. There was no really competition on the street. We were selling like crazy, and it was just absolutely wonderful. And then, in 2013, Xi Jinping came in power, and then everything changed. So the first thing was the consequences of the anti-corruption campaign was felt everywhere. So B2B business would stop. So basically, government channels would then not buy wine anymore. So everyone looked around, but at this time, 2 channels started to increase, which was one is e-commerce, and the second one was wine stores. So there was a very tough time coming. I lost almost 50% of my staff during this time, because competitors would pick them and make them open own wine stores. So in one area, Guotie in Beijing, we had 1 wine store alone. And then during this time, within 3 months, there were 5 wine stores within 150 meters, and everyone was educated by Cheers. So, but that is okay. That is mostly also, of course, copycats appeared. So being a Swiss, copycat was for me a bit strange. But now I know it's a compliment and it's good. So therefore, at that time, we realized, wow, okay, there is a huge demand of people wanted their own wine stores. And then we started franchising. So that means then we gave our staff and our customers a chance to open their own store. And that's how we then started to scale. And I have to say also for my employees, I mean, the ones who opened copycats or went with with other competitors, they would get bankrupt within 9 or 12 months, because people realize running a wine store is not just having a room with a lot of shelf inside. There's a huge machinery in the backside who makes sure that everything is stable and brings the education and brings good wines in. So therefore, people would realize, it's not so easy. So then they joined Cheers. And that's how we then started to quicker grow with franchise system.
I see. How many now do you have in franchise and are your own stores?
Well, right now, because all the stores which we have lost in Beijing due to the renovation were all our own stores. So right now we only have 6 own stores, and the rest is all franchising. So the demand for Chinese, the willing to open own stores is huge. Chinese are very smart business people, and they have this entrepreneurial habit inside, and they're doing quite a good job. So the demand is very, very big for franchising.
Okay. If someone is listening to us and actually would be interested in what kind of contract you sign for franchisee, could you explain more about what kind of contract you sign, what kind of support you provide? I understand the franchisee can leverage your brand. They can leverage your portfolio of wine. They can buy from your inventory. If I understand, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Do they have to pay you a monthly fee or a yearly fee? Could you explain about how it works?
Yes. So we adapted our concept very much to China. And it's a legal system to copy paste. So they have to follow the whole Cheers philosophy. So it's of course the products 100% must be coming from us, because 99% of all our products are exclusive for Cheers, and we want that because we want the transparency, and we don't do private label because we want, our customers are looking via Vivino, for example, does this wine exist in another country? What's the retail prices? And we want to have this transparency. So then, they need franchise partners need to have our assortment. They need to have our marketing. We have to approve the interior design. So it's completely a legal way to really copy paste our concept. We don't charge a monthly fee. We charge an upfront one-time fee for 3 years, which is very reasonable. It's 50,000. And people would also have to pay a deposit so that they would follow our rules. So if they would, for example, be caught selling other wines than Cheers wines, then we have the right to reduce the deposit. The reason why we do that is we want to be very strict. I'm putting my face behind every single bottle. So I need to make sure that we can have a stable quality in our stores and with our products as well. So we are providing then, they are part of our team. So we're providing KPIs like we would do it in our own stores, sales KPIs. Then we also have, of course, an entrance training, which is very intensive. And then a weekly follow-up training on WeChat. We have a huge community within franchise partners, employees, where they exchange ideas and exchange experience, especially with new arrivals and new wines and so on. One part which is very, very successful is the mini wine school every Wednesday at 7. So we have wines. So one wine will be opened at the same time in all the stores nationwide. And we would open that for our customers to explain the customer a little bit more about wine. The reason why we do that is because on Monday morning, we would train all our store staff about this particular wine, and they would then pass this knowledge on Wednesday. Because you have to understand the wine world is huge and it's endless to learn, so that you can continuously educate your team in the stores. You have to have a running concept. So this mini wine school has been proven a very good success for our store managers, but also for the customers at the end.
I see. Very interesting. So basically, the staff on Mondays train has a bit of pressure to say on Friday I need to be ready. So they have to rehearse to make sure they know about it. It's a good way, actually. It's extremely good way to educate 52 wines basically in a year. I see.
So. And many of our store members or store staff, they have also WSET certification. WSET is Wine Spirit Educational Trust.
Yes.
It's an international certification. We offer those courses at Cheers as well. And we appreciate when our store staff also passing those level 1 or level 2, mostly level 3 as well. So that also is important, that we have well-educated people in the store so that they can guide the wine drinkers through this complex world of wines.
You said that some of your copycat people would try to copy wine Cheers in 2013, 2014, when regulations became tougher for B2B businesses. They failed after 9 or 12 months, a lot of them. How do you analyze their failure? Of course, it's about creating a brand and so on. They were not able, but do you, financially speaking, what was actually a burden for them? Was it the inventory? Was it the rent? Was it the salaries of the staff? How do you analyze it?
It's a lot of reasons. One is the choice of wines. You know, people would not really know much about wine, and then they would randomly buy wines from this importers in China. You don't know if, you know, a wine is something so sensitive. And if you choose a wrong wine and you offer wrong prices, the customer will lose trust immediately. So at the end of the day, it's building an honest brand with extraordinary good products and with a very knowledgeable customer service and also thinking pro customer. So in Cheers, for our mission at Cheers, and much more important than any wine we sell, our mission is Cheers makes you smile. So much more important is that we give the customer a good feeling, so that the customer feel trusted and feels that we have the best selection. And, when a customer comes to a Cheers store, we are not guiding them to the expensive French wines. We would ask a lot of questions to really make sure that we offer the right wine for this person, for the event they needing it. And that's what our customer appreciate. So you will always receive a smile, you will always receive a very good recommendation, and that brings the customer afterwards back to us.
Okay, so you would conclude that it's much more product issue that makes them fair in terms of selection and making discover the product more than actually the cost of running the business. Of course, it's correlated, but basically you would assess that it's a product. You talked about people in the shop. You're on team, or the team of the franchisee. I remember when I was in your shop. Indeed, the waitresses, the people in the shop were much more friendly and easy to talk to than most of the shops I've been to, where in most of the restaurants or shops, they just would serve. They would present some wines they have been told to sell within this week or within this month. How did you build a culture? How did you train them? How do you still train them? And is it more difficult, you think, than other countries? Do you feel it's especially difficult in China, as some people say, or it's a myth?
Well, thanks for the compliment. And it's, I love working in China, and I love working with the young generation, because in China, people really want to learn and they want to really grow. And when we hire, we have very strong internal culture. And when we hire people, we want to see that they are willing to develop themselves. And we also train them about self-confidence. We train them about customer service skills, sales knowledge. We have a lot about articles of Dale Carnegie, for example, they need to read and discuss. We have books like The Go-Giver, which they discuss internally as well. So it's a brighter education. It's not just about wine, but it's an general attitude to life. And we only want people who understand this and they want to develop themselves. So I think that makes the biggest difference. In China, it's beautiful because Chinese, they are really active and they are really willing to learn, and they are really amazing how they can grow in a very short time. Okay. Yeah, so how is this to other countries? I can't tell you. I'm in China for 12 years. I did live in India before, and India is also beautiful, but it's completely a different country. So it's really hard to compare with any other country. China is just so full of dynamic and full of smart people. So in China, you have a lot of possibilities to make a business right.
When you say you make them read and think about Dale Carnegie and some papers like this, is it also salespeople in the store, or it's mainly the management?
No, of course, the salespeople, absolutely. So, for example, we do things a bit different. When we hire a C-level person or a high-level person, this person gets also interviewed by assistants and by lower level of people. So we try to include all the people together. And I mean, especially sell stuff in the stores, they need the confidence and they need to be trained how to deal with people, how to make people happy, and not just a fake way, but an honest way. So we are also looking towards ourselves first. So we always say, if you want to lead others or if you want to sell others, you first have to know yourself better. So it's all about mindfulness, and it's all about having the right attitude, and then you can start building up the professional knowledge around it.
I see. Because the reason why I'm surprised that most of the salespeople in a shop, they are not from the city, they're not from Beijing, they're not from Shanghai, they come from far away. To suddenly be told a thinker or philosopher or a business person from the US and what he thinks and so on, that's absolutely unexpected from them, right? They are not used to have this kind of training. How do they react? Do they think it's... Yeah.
Especially people from the countryside are so hungry for knowledge and they're so willing to improve themselves. That's just amazing. So we have many, many people from outside Beijing who work with us, and they're just the best. They're amazing.
Interesting. So yeah, we talked about your growth, how you manage your growth. Oh, by the way, I have one question. Have you got outside investment? I saw somewhere Movenpick invested.
Yes. So it was 2016 when Movenpick actually came to us. They wanted to open own wine stores. Movenpick is a Swiss company, now belongs to a German owner. And they believed in us and they invested in us and they're still with us. So we are growing together.
Movenpick is not the ice cream, or it's another one?
So they are famous. No. They are famous for ice cream. They're famous for coffee. They actually had a lot of hotels and so on. But most of the businesses are either licenses. So Nestle owns the ice cream, for example, and they just sold the hotels. So they are more in the financial investment world right now. But Movenpick itself also has very successful wine stores in Switzerland and some in Germany as well.
I see.
So that was always good. So we can also learn from their operational experience. So that is the most important thing. And you mentioned at the beginning, EO. So within the entrepreneur world, it's really, really important to have experience sharing constantly. So that's why we have a very strong entrepreneur community in Beijing and I guess in Shanghai as well. When you can exchange experience, that's what makes you at the end much stronger.
For people listening to us, actually, I talked about EO before we recorded. So EO, an entrepreneur organization. It's a US-based organization initially, but now all over the world. And you are president of the Beijing chapter. And it's a very, very interesting organization I've been part of as well, where you learn a lot about scaling up your business. Going back on the investment, what do you think they expect, Movenpick? Do they expect to resell the shares in later stage? What do they see in you? Why do they invest?
Well, we are in China after all, and China is a huge market. So the ultimate goal for Cheers from the beginning was to open 888 stores. But that was back in 2011. Now it's not so much about store alone. Now, as I said at the beginning, it's O2O. So you have to have the online and offline integrated together. So we all have one goal is growth.
Okay. Talking about O2, actually, that's exactly the transition I needed. We have begun to talk about the 8 platforms you are on. Easily, I can name, because I went on some of your platform, Weidian, so WeChat shop for those who cannot speak Chinese. And then you have JD Store, Jingdong Store, linked to your WeChat as well, both of them. Because Jingdong and WeChat are working together. We're talking about Douyin. You are on Weibo. You're on Youku as well. You mentioned Youku to some journalists online. What are the other platforms, and what could you describe? What do you do on each of them? If you have a specific strategy for each of them, and more specifically Douyin, which is difficult to approach.
So Erlema is very big as well. So it really depends on which area you are. And as we have 40 stores in Beijing, so I can mainly talk about Beijing. So you have the classical e-commerce channels like Taobao and JD, where they are linked to certain social medias as well. So you always combine wine content with sales as well. But what makes it very interesting are those channels where we can deliver very, very fast from the stores. So Taobao and JD, the delivery time is 24 hours. But when you order it on Erlema, Baiduan, Meituan, and so on, then you have like 20 minutes delivery time. And that makes it attractive. And that is the new standard in China, I would say. Fast delivery.
Yeah, Ulmer, for instance, is equivalent in the West of Deliveroo, I would say, right? It's they go to your shop, they pick up and deliver.
Yes, and you can order, as a consumer, you can order food and products from any kind of offline stores. And they would only find you when you have a offline location somewhere so that you can deliver. If you are too far away, then customers can't find you. So that is the very big advantage, having a lot of little outlets all over the place, so that we are always on top in Beijing, so that when somebody searches for wine, so we are always on top and the fastest to deliver.
I interviewed a few months ago someone managing coffee shops here in Shanghai, and they are using Meituan and Ulema, I think, as well. And they told me that the prices is changing based on the weather, if it's raining or not raining, to pricing to deliver. Could you tell us more about how do you integrate all those systems into one system? Because I feel to plug Ulema, Meituan, and all those systems in your own inventory and for different shops, franchises as well. How did you do that? And are you built internally a CRM? Have you built, how did you do that?
Yeah, so that is always a big challenge, because also new channels are appearing all the time. So right now it's a lot of manual work from the back end. We are just about to upgrade our ERP, POS, CRM system so that it's much easier to connect the different channels, backends of those channels together in one system, because you have a lot of different systems and they all need to come back to your main system. So we haven't found the ultimate greatest solution yet. Luckily, we are in China, so we can hire a lot of people as well. So it's a balance, and we are just in the middle of upgrading our system.
I see. In terms of driving clients from online to offline, as far as I remember, Ulema and Meituan, they find clients for you. It's a platform, so people would buy one. But some platforms are only providing the logistics, only providing the delivery. You have your own clients. Could you tell us more about how you drive your own clients to your platform and not the platform driving traffic to you through social media and so? Could you share some experience?
Yes. So O2O for me, it's offline, driving traffic offline to online, and driving online traffic to offline. So it's a both direction. So let's say you are in a store, you are invited for a wine tasting, you have a one-time in your life experience, and you really enjoy it. And then on every price tags, we have QR codes, you can immediately deliver. Wines are heavy. No one likes to carry around. Beijing has not a lot of parking spaces. So it's a bit different than in the Western world. So you have to make it as convenient as possible. So there are many, many touch points within the store where people can see, oh, I can deliver it home. And some of the people, they order it directly from the stores and they have it delivered faster than they would arrive at home. So that is in China, or in Beijing at least, a standard which you have to follow. And it's great, actually. Out of a consumer, I mean, I'm a consumer. I love it very much.
True.
To get delivered everything in very fast.
I interviewed also someone who worked in the wine industry before, and I believe you know his website. His one was named Z9H, so it was Adrien Fabry, and he was talking about the wine business. He closed the business after 5 years, and he was telling me that the reason why it was a flash sales website for wines, flash sales only, so wines as a discount. He was telling me the reason why we will not be able to build a flash sales website business in China compared to Europe, where it's existing and it's doing well, is that Chinese don't consume wine on a daily basis. It's not a daily drink. It's not a drink you will have for every meal, like in the West or in Europe, where they would open a bottle nearly every 2 days, or every 3 days, or every day. What's your analysis on the consumption of wine at home, not only for a birthday, not only for celebration, not only for weddings? Yeah.
So according to the statistics, it's actually 50-50 now, 50% off trade, 50% on trade. In fact, the Chinese don't drink yet regularly wines. From our VIP customers, they return back 5 times a year. So yes, that is absolutely true, but you have the mass of the people in China, which makes it beautiful.
Clearly. What kind of business model do you see for the future in China for wine? Do you think flash sale is going to take off? Also, the events like Jojo 99 sales started by Tmall. What do you see, or more pop-up stores? What do you see for the future?
Well, if you look, I mean, the future is definitely that you find a good balance between offline and online. So you have to have a footprint on both channels, but also cross-border e-commerce becomes more and more popular. So for especially limited and very special wines from maybe very hidden away producers where people wouldn't really know about it. So that means you show the vineyards, you have the winemaker, and there is maybe a limitation of 1,000 or only 10,000 bottles, something like this. And people in China can order it from the living room directly, and it will be delivered in 3 to 5 days from the vineyards to the customers. This is something I feel the trend has picked up in the wine business as well. It was very, very popular within cosmetics and baby wear before. And this is also, so I think the success in China is always to find a good balance between different things. You cannot just have an e-commerce side, or you cannot just have wine stores. You really have to offer the different channels, and you have to think customers first, because the customers are your biggest asset, and you need to listen really to the market. You need to understand what the market wants, and also the market is changing, especially Chinese consumers are changing so fast. It's incredible, you know. So all those kind of aspects, you have to be out there. You need to know what's happening, and you need to know which channel to jump in. And there are new channels coming up constantly, and some will work and some doesn't work. So you have to find a good balance between all your activities around it.
You mentioned cross-border. It's a topic which is very often mentioned by businesses which are overseas, because now they don't have to register a business in China to sell from overseas. Taxes have been reduced recently, early 2019. But still, I think a lot of people who are outside of China would say, what's the difference for a customer? You said you need to be customer-centric. What's the difference for a customer to buy from overseas, like cross-border, or to buy from a shop, basically? The product is the same. You have to wait when you buy from cross-border. What's the advantage?
Well, it depends on which channel you normally buy, but it's really important when quality issues are very important. So we are, for example, at Cheers, we are doing competitor check every month. So we are buying products from other sources, and you cannot believe how many bad products are still out there in the market. So as a consumer, when I have a cross-border deal, I know the quality is real because I get it directly from the suppliers. And then also that you would find some speciality, something which is not just you bring it in and you have it in the warehouse and everyone can buy it. So you would have access to very, very special wineries or special wines to try out. So there are many advantages out of it.
Okay, so it's the trust that it's coming from overseas.
Huge.
I see.
Yes.
I see.
For a overseas suppliers, just to open a cross-border channel, it's might not going to work so easy, because you have to have the access to the customers as well. And you have to know what the customers want, and you have to build the content which the customers want, and the wine tastings in China. So for wine, I'm saying now, maybe other products like baby powder, or milk powder is a different story. But for wine, it's also the people need to trust the channel, and they need to have this on and off line experience. So I keep saying that it's not just wine selling online. I don't believe in it. You must have the offline experience. You must have the way to try the wines, or to build the trust to your customers within the offline experience. That is absolutely essential.
I see. Actually, we are close to 1 hour of talk now. I'd like to open up and finish on this topic. It is to go overseas. And you mentioned to journalists, you mentioned, I think on your LinkedIn profile as well, that you are going overseas. You are working on going overseas. Could you share more about the countries you are thinking of when we are based in China? What countries do you think of, and what's your analysis of the other countries?
Yes. Well, we're going step by step. I just got a lot of demands from other countries, such as the Philippines, Vietnam. I'm talking about Southeast Asia mainly, about Cheers, because Cheers has really shaken up the wine industry in terms of we find a way how to sell the wines in an uncomplicated and sympathetic and fun way. And of course, in China, also very affordable. So it really needs... I'm sorry, I forgot your question.
Which country? Your analysis of countries. I guess Indonesia, for instance, is very specific. Vietnam is very specific as well.
Yes.
You can maybe more difficult to sell in Indonesia than Vietnam. So what's your analysis?
So the next countries would be Vietnam and Philippines.
Yes, Vietnam and Philippines.
Next step. Yes, but I'm not sure yet. We are just in the research stage. We have a lot of interest. The weather is different. The consumers are different, so it's a lot to prepare before we would make the next step.
Thank you very much for your time, Claudia, from directly from Switzerland.
You, Matthieu.
Thanks, congratulations for everything you achieved. Very, very impressive.
Thank you.
And hope everyone enjoyed the talk. Thank you very much.
Great, wishing you a wonderful day. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.